Welcome back to the REI Agent. We have a special episode. We have Chase Louderback with us again. I was about to say back with us, and that would have been a little bit awkward. Chase Louderback back with us. But Chase was a guest early on, back when we were still under the Wealthy Investor brand, and we talked about mainly about syndications. You're involved with mobile home park syndications, and we got into your story. So definitely a good episode to listen to. We wanted to take things a little bit differently this time. We wanted to talk a little bit about your experience and kind of how we met and how we kind of got together, but also wanted to just maybe give some advice to somebody. Pretend that there's somebody here talking to us that we wanted to give advice to about how to kind of get started in real estate, in investing, and in a sales agent. So when we got together, I'll just quickly say that we hosted a real estate meetup, real estate investing group. And in that meetup, we kind of always just said that, hey, we're both agents. I'm a little bit heavier on the agent side and Chase is a little bit heavier on the investing side. But maybe we can get started with how you kind of got into the real estate world. Just give us a quick version of, your first deal when, you were in college, right? You want to give us that, and then kind of how you ended up being a real estate agent or getting to that point.
Yeah. So I guess, do you want me to go all the way from there to like what I'm doing now, or just?
Yeah, just until you got to be a real estate agent.
Yeah. So when I became an agent, I had basically bought my first rental property in college and renovated it and then rented it out for a year. And then by the time I graduated college, I sold it. And so I was looking at either going to get a doctorate or like some form of master's degree, and saw the money that I made from that, and decided to go into real estate full time. So that was rough. I don't think I would do that again, the way I did that, because I just had one lump check, and then I was literally just trying to find deals. I wasn't licensed or anything at that point. So I had like 2 projects where I was doing a lot of the work myself, as soon as I got out of college. And then one of the hurdles I ran into was, if a good deal comes on the market, even back then, this was like, mid 20-teens, like 2014, 2015, you still needed to be really quick. So I was beholden to somebody else to like go out and write the contract docs. Whereas I was like, 1, I may as well get paid for it. And then 2, I can control that process a lot better. And then in some situations, like kind of, use that as leverage to also give up my commission. So there's like threefold of,
why you got your license or why you went into that.
Yeah.
How long were you investing on your own before you were licensed? I don't remember that part.
It was a few years. It's been a while now, so it's a little foggy, but it's like 2 to 3 years.
He blocks that out of his memory.
Yeah. So, it was at least 2 to 3 years where I was like, I may as well go ahead and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at one point our office bought your office, or our brokerage kind of merged with your brokerage. And we kind of were both doing some version of a real estate investing club. You had probably a more traditional version. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, let's just get together, drink beer, and talk about real estate. But it was a great merger at that time. We've done a few things together as well over the years, partnered on different things. So we've gotten to know each other well. And again, we always had that kind of dynamic where I was still, mainly in the real estate sales side, and even in your like peak of real estate sales, you were still, more focused on the real estate investing side of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, you compared to sales versus me, it was like not in the same world. So yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was always like, your primary goal was always like to be, going in there with investing. You've talked about, how you've kind of always had like almost 2 channels of things that you've done, and how maybe it's not something that you would necessarily advise on. So maybe we can start there. Then we can maybe get into like kind of how we suggest somebody get started. But yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that, how you've kind of always had 2 paths?
Yeah. I mean, we were chatting a little bit before this about I think I've got some good strengths that really helped with my growth, but then some things that, like, if I go back, I think I could compress the timeline and do a lot more now. One of those was the 2 paths, which was basically like splitting your focus. It felt like that was safer to do, diversify. I always had 2 things that I'd wanted to do. So when I was, doing the investing side, I was an agent. at a point I had like a W-2 job and I was investing. So I was like doing shifts. And then as soon as I got off, going by the projects and meeting contractors and different things, I was doing, and so then I had flips and got into the commercial. So I still occasionally even do some flips, just did a new build this year, even when we're doing syndication. So I've just seen that, and I try to stop myself from doing it still, where I focus on one main thing as opposed to, having a bunch of different side projects, because you end up just making a lot less and it taking way more of your time. Yeah, and the other big thing too was, as I was going through the process, I kind of overestimated what was possible. So it was a bit of a mindset thing where, I didn't think agents made a lot of money where I was, so I didn't think it was worth pursuing that. And so that just kind of carries over into different projects. So like, I thought you need to be this experienced to buy this big of a deal. I thought I needed to have this in order to do that, and so like I kind of held myself back in some ways.
Sure.
And those are probably the two biggest. My only real strength, I think, is that I just have a strong willingness to learn, and that I just am persistent. I don't think I'm exceptionally intelligent or anything like that, and that I just kept going at it until I kind of hit what my goals were.
Yeah, I mean, you get after it. I mean, for sure. I mean, you've accomplished a ton, even if you feel like your journey wasn't perfectly linear. You've definitely accomplished a ton, and it's awesome to see. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to kind of talk to two people, or if we're pretending to talk to one person, two people talking to them about how a journey in the real estate world could go. And we both had maybe circumstances that would have, more for me at the beginning when I started, I was doing a full-time job and real estate sales. But our main focus was paying off student loans. And so like that to us at the time was more important than having the real estate sales career take off as quickly as it could. So taking the pay hit to do just full-time sales while that was building didn't make sense with what our goals were. But I guess if we were going to start by, advising somebody looking like, somebody just came to us and they're like, I listened to a podcast, I want to get into real estate, I'm super fired up. What do I do? What do I start with? I think one of the two paths you have to kind of choose, you don't have to, but I think it probably makes sense. And the purpose of our conversation, we'll just split it up. It's kind of going the agent route for having kind of like an active income, if you will, versus going the wholesale route where people are hunting for deals off market and then selling those contracts to an investor. And I think those are maybe the most usual places people start to kind of have an earned income. And I won't get into that too much. I think it's tricky. It can be trickier to do both real estate residential sales and wholesaling. So we're just going to leave the wholesaling. I have other episodes about that, other people that do wholesaling. Just going to leave that out of this conversation. And we can just kind of come at it from a lens of being a real estate agent and wanting to start investing. So like, again, what would you say would be like kind of a good place to start for somebody like that?
Yeah, I think because even a step back is like, there's two options. Is you're going that you want to be an operator and an active investor, then, those are kind of where a lot of people get started. If you want to be passive and you've got a lot to start with, and some people do, you've talked about in the other episodes where you passively invest as an LP in a syndication. Yeah. You can do notes and different things like that too. So there's some other routes if you're just like, hey, I don't want to touch real estate, but I want to get some of the benefits of it. If you know that you're going to be an operator, which I did, I wanted to be hands-on. I like the creative aspects of it. Wholesaling or being an agent is, probably the best ways to get in touch with it. I'm kind of like you. I think I've in my career wholesaled 2 deals. Like I personally had a problem with it where I was like, if I put this under contract, I'm going to be the buyer. So it's very tough for me to recommend somebody new to do that, because if I started over, I wouldn't do that. Maybe I would try to wholesale some commercial real estate where it makes some sense. But if you're starting from scratch, you don't have that knowledge, like it's very difficult to do. Yeah. So I think an agent's a great way to get exposed to real estate. And just kind of learn and make an income while you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, if it's possible when you're first starting out to get in with another experienced agent, somebody that's successful in the business, And, if you could get a full-time job with them, being their assistant, being their transaction coordinator, something, that is probably the most ideal. Like if you need some kind of income to kind of keep you going, you may not be making a ton of money right away when you start as an agent. So I think that could be an ideal scenario. We had talked about doing one thing, or focusing on one thing, or your advice would be to, do that. I think it can be a little bit hard if you want to get your first investment property, which the easiest way is to buy a house you're going to live in, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to get your first property. And if you don't have a W-2 and you just started selling real estate as a real estate agent, you're going to have a very hard time, even if you're making good money, to qualify for a loan. They typically want you to have 2 years of experience, tax returns, to be able to qualify. I know of a couple places now that I've heard that you can have 1 year. So there's possibilities for alternatives to what I'm saying, but for the general rules, you need 2 years.
Yeah.
So one of the thoughts I had was like, wouldn't it make sense for somebody to essentially keep their job for a little bit, sell real estate on the side, save up some money, buy the first house that they want to turn into a rental, ideally a house that they could also have either people share or, live in rooms, rent out rooms, or being a multifamily, quadruplex, triplex, duplex, that somebody could live in the other ones and kind of earn the rent, cover the mortgage, live for free at least, while they are saving up for the next one. What are some other angles of, I guess we can just term it, house hacking that you think somebody could think about if they're trying to get their kind of first property getting started?
Yeah. Before kind of touching on that, I think too, there's, it depends what your goals are. So like if I was starting over, I like some of the commercial real estate and development side of it. So you could go work for a development company or something instead as well.
Yeah.
So it really, the benefit of being an agent is like you get to control what you make to an extent. You can hustle and work harder, whereas your salary job, you don't have that.
Right.
But if that's, there are a lot of agents that don't really look into the real estate investment side. So if your goal is to do something else, then you should try to find someone you can work for that is as closely aligned with what that goal is.
Yeah. So for you, the end game would have been something more in the commercial, like kind of investing space, not necessarily being an agent. So the experience you would gain from getting a job in that kind of realm would have been more beneficial to you.
Yeah. Yep.
To have that W-2 to qualify for the first house. That makes sense. Yeah.
Or like in that situation, let's say you want to get into commercial, you were talking about wholesaling too, like you could do that or be a commercial agent. There's there are brokers in the space that make still way more annually than net income than we do as operators, and we're at a pretty decent size scale now. So I do think house hacking is a great way to get into it, though. It's talked about a lot, but
yeah,
the fact,
it works.
It works, and it's just like now there's a lot more technology that can protect you for renting out different rooms. If you just bought a house, you make sure that zoning and everything is okay with that.
Yeah.
Then you can rent them out, have basically a free or pay to live somewhere. But the big benefit is the appreciation. So you want to make sure you're still buying it right. And, over 5-10 years, that's where your real wealth is coming from.
Yeah. And that kind of, if we're going to keep focusing on the real estate investing side of things to begin, I think the appreciation talk is kind of important as well, because I think there's big differences in markets depending where people are at. I think investing in your backyard is the easiest place to start. It's going to be the area that you have the most natural resources or knowledge, connections, all that stuff is going to be easiest to start that way. It doesn't mean you have to start that way, but it's the easiest. And you're going to feel more secure too, especially because the first deals, you kind of just got to get to the plate and start swinging a little bit. Don't take any deal, but do something. Get out there and do something.
Yeah, and your biggest thing, because I know you help a lot of some clients with this too, or with investing, is you just need to have somebody in your corner that's done it before.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you're doing, real estate isn't always perfect. We've lost money on deals. You have unforeseen issues when you get into renovations. There's a lot of things where if you're doing it your first time too, I think the catch with like the current market environment is there's so many gurus and sales things out there that then you just keep learning and you never do it. But you should find somebody that can actually like partner with you. You bring a deal or you bring this like something to where you're making sure that you're learning and not getting hurt on your first couple of deals. It's not about making money on the first couple of deals.
Yeah, and maybe not right away. Like if you're looking at it as a long-term rental, like, Eric and I, we owe about $40,000, something like that on our first house now. And it's a rental. It's not killing it cash flow wise, but it would sell for 270 to 300,000. So, it's we need to put a little money in. Let's not get lost in the weeds here, but we just held that property over time and we put it on a 15-year mortgage. And I haven't want to refinance it because it's at like 3.15 or something like that. But I don't know if I would do that again. Probably just take the 30-year, but we now have a big equity win with that. And that wasn't a steal when we bought it. Yeah, the market was slower, so it wasn't like we were getting ripped off. But I feel like everybody thinks that they're kind of overpaying often. When you're buying and so like if you're looking to buy your first house, it's gonna be a house hack. Yes, I think it's important to try to get a decent deal, be in a good location that you think is going to do well over time. That's going to make a good rental going forward when you're able to buy another one. But I don't think you need to be paralyzed by it being this, really big, thing that you need to renovate or, it's, if you can move into it and rent some rooms out, if you're able to do that, then it could be a great opportunity without having to be a grand slam, just a base hit.
Yeah. And I think you had a really good point too, where some very good deals I bought is at the time it was like, I don't know if we should maybe back out of this, so we're paying too much for it. And then you look back and you're like, wow, yeah, I wish I could buy like a lot of deals at this price range again.
Which ties into the point I was going to make too, is that, we are we're in the coast, one of the coasts, right? So like we are in a more appreciation heavy market. And so there's going to be some other markets that people may not have as much appreciation. They may need to focus more on the cash flow to make sure that they're kind of getting some sort of base. I think if you look at it as like a pyramid, if you're starting your base of the pyramid, if you're an equity rich, if you're in, San Diego, you're probably not going to be cash flowing.
Yeah.
But you're going to be able to get some great opportunities with equity. And that's kind of the advantage of the market. That's what you probably need to look at as your base to start if you are investing in your backyard.
And I think, like you said, I think one of the bigger things is, take some time to study and learn and find a mentor in the market. But based on what your goals are, like I personally wouldn't invest out of state for single family rentals and cash flowing Midwest markets, because that doesn't make sense to me. For the amount of like control that you have to relinquish, because you're going to have a third party management company versus the appreciation you're going to gain, and what your cash, like it just doesn't make, but for somebody else, that could be a great thing.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like there are better vehicles to do that. So just really depends on what your goals are, because if you want something that's more appreciation heavy, which is likely where the real wealth is because it doesn't get taxed as much, then that changes how your strategy is.
Right.
The biggest thing, either way, like I think, like going back to the one thing, is like either way, whichever way you're looking at it and you feel confident in that thesis, you just need to like stick to it. So those cash flowing ones that I'm saying don't make much sense for me, well, in 5 years, if all of those units that you've bought have, had their cash flow increase a decent amount, 25, 30, 50, whatever, like then they're going to start making a lot more sense.
Yeah.
For me personally, all my single family rentals, they just don't, they don't really make much money, and they're starting to now, but I've had them for almost, a decade at this point. So,
but you've seen some good appreciation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and I think at this stage, what we're talking about is kind of like the first couple of deals. And I think, again, kind of getting some equity to play with, whether you realize that equity through a home equity line of credit, whether you refinance, which is kind of to your point you made earlier about the appreciation is kind of a more tax, what's the word? It's better for taxes advantage, because because you can refinance the money out and that won't be taxed on as opposed to selling it or having cash flow come in that's going to be taxed. But yeah, for the base, like let's if you're building up your portfolio to start with house hacking, because really saving up 5% to get a conventional loan is really all you can do to start. I think that's a great way to start. And if you are able to pick up a property every year or something like that for the first 5 years, that's a pretty awesome start to your career. It can be hard if you have a family, if you have a wife and kids. They're not looking forward to bouncing around from house to house and like that. So it doesn't work for everybody, but if you're kind of building up your sales career as you are not really actively investing, you're buying a house to live in, and maybe you're renting out part of it out to other people, and then moving to the next one. It's not like you're out necessarily hunting for deals and doing active renovations and all these more advanced strategies. It's just kind of building that base up of a portfolio.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a strategy too. Like builders will stay in the same spot for a couple of years and then move because there's tax advantages with that. There's several different good ways to get introduced to real estate, like you're saying. So just really, I used to hate this when I'd hear a podcast saying like, it really depends what your goals are, but it does, because you can go the agent route. You can build homes like that, stay for a couple of years. You can house hack.
Yeah.
So I went the house hack and investor. That's what I did when I was started. I house hacked and just did investment real estate. So I was buying rentals and flipping houses. And
you talk about building, and that's definitely another avenue. Lots of the other avenues of real estate investing involve more capital. And that's kind of where, if you are an appreciation heavy market and you're able to start building up that base and start establishing some equity in these properties, you can tap into that with, like I said, the home equity lines of credit. I usually say that it's best to try it while you're still living in the house. If there is equity in the house, try to tap into that with a HELOC before you buy the next one. Then keep that HELOC open, because the terms are a little bit better if you have as a primary residency. But then after that, if you aren't able to do it, or you got a lot more equity in these properties and the HELOC's not really tapping into all of that, you can secure like multiple lines of, like you can get one line of credit on multiple properties too, which is another way to get at that equity.
That could be pretty cool to chat with people about, because like the commercial real estate side, like there are standard transactions, but there's also a lot of creativity that can go into it, and that's something that you can carry forward here. Like I don't really like sub 2 because I think that's a little risky with where we are in the market cycle anyway. You're going to be probably negative equity. But you can still do a lot of creative things where you're getting seller financing at a term that works, and that requires you to have less down if you have a good relationship with the seller. You mentioned it before, like I would, if I was doing starting over, I would try to have some career that's real estate focused, and then look for like a 4-unit, somewhere between 2 to 4 units to buy, because you can get the 5% or less down, and then basically you're house hacking the units, and then you can eventually buy something else and then lease that unit when you're done.
That's the ideal, like getting a fourplex with a low money down, because you can up to 4 is where it's not commercial, and getting the FHA, getting the whatever low entry, that's the ideal for sure.
I'm pretty risk averse too, though, so the catch with that would be and with any of these, depending on like how your market is and how expensive the property is like you want to make sure that you're going to have at least 6 months of operating expenses, because if 2 of your tenants move out and they trash the place, and you're not making any, like you're barely making anything off of the cash flow when it's occupied, then you're kind of in a bad spot if you've got no reserves. So just making sure that you're being smart about it like that. But
and that's why, where like maybe that's not the first play. Maybe the first play is just a single family, and you got to have a place to live. And then if you have that equity line of credit, you've saved up money as well. Now that equity line of credit, you may not want to tap into. You don't want to use it as a long-term thing. Like you wouldn't want to put it down. I wouldn't want to put it down as a down payment for the fourplex, but you now have a safety cushion if something happens. Like you've spent most of your money buying this place, but you have access to $50,000 in this equity line of credit. Maybe you can rely on that a little bit so that, if you do need to renovate properties or you have that, nightmare situation, you have access to some capital and maybe you can then refinance it out into a new note.
Yeah. And I think just the conversation is like, it just kind of showcases like there's so many different ways to do it. Like that's a perfectly reasonable way to do it. If it was me and I was like having trouble with the down payment portion of it, like I can't come up with a down payment, then I would be looking for like, who can I get that money from and work out a deal with? So that way, if I do have, let's say you need to have 50 grand, who could I get the 50 grand from and give them a return? Maybe they get a slice of the equity on the upside, or they get, there's different things you can do, percentage of the cash flow. And that way, if I already had 50 grand, I'm saving that for a rainy day. Or potentially another deal comes up and I need half of that for that other deal. And then now I can do that. I would still try to find that same person, but use their money to buy the second deal. Like it gives you options. You want to have that flexibility.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's the beauty of real estate, right? I mean, there's so many different creative strategies. And yeah, just kind of getting started is usually the biggest hurdle for people.
Should we do a quick, like, here's how I would go from like house hacking, getting units to like maybe a 5-year plan to scale.
Yeah, sure.
So I mean, didn't plan for this at all, so I have to think off the top of my head. But I would say if you're starting from zero, then try to get into some form of salary or commission-based, job where you can make a lot of money that has some of your control to increase the upside if possible. That for a lot of people is already going to sound like a pipe dream, but just as an agent, whatever you can get that's gonna pay your bills, and ideally you want to maximize as much as you can wherever your skill set is. So if you're super low on that, like your profession, then you need to like get a skill that's going to be better paid. That's just what it is. And like you're saying, an agent's a great way to do that. The next thing would be I would start trying to build relationships with other people that are in the space already. A lot of it's incredible how the real estate investing space is, because a lot of people are just really willing to talk and give advice and help. So I've sat down and helped a lot of people, but then there are people that I'm surprised even have a phone call with me that have provided guidance. So like you're building a little bit of a team of mentors and stuff there, and also resources to help you capitalize on that first deal. And to your point, I would try to start like buying a multi-unit and rent out the other unit, but then also on my own unit, rent out whatever bedrooms I don't have or don't need. And then from there, just keep saving and learning and building relationships to where I can take on bigger deals. So building up a better off-market pipeline because right now it's really hard to find a deal unless it's probably going to be off-market and distressed. Mm-hmm. And then just scaling up to a point to where I feel comfortable to take on larger deals. So like if I started over, I would probably immediately start looking at bigger deals again, because I just already have that experience. But
right, it's hard to know
when you're learning and you got to cut your teeth on some of the smaller stuff. I think it's okay to grow more organically, because I hear a lot like, okay, you bought a 4 unit, now go out and buy 50 units, go out and buy 100 units. I'd go out and, again, try to do like 8 units. Now you're in commercial. It's not too big. It is going to require a lot of your time. So it's not something you're going to get rich quick with, but a lot of those things, it's actually harder to do the small ones. So I sold a 33 lot community this year, and it was way more work than our larger ones. So cut your teeth on that. You're starting to build the relationships, and then you scale on whatever that asset class is. So self-storage, multifamily, whatever. That's how I would do it.
Yeah. You've said that to me a lot. Like, basically the smaller deals aren't as worth. I mean, they're the same amount of work, or they're more work because you can't afford to hire, some of the people needed to do those. To property manage, to whatever, maintenance, all that kind of stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually counterintuitive, because your risk is higher on the smaller stuff. If you have a 20 unit property and 3 people move out, that's over 10%. Whereas if you have a 200 unit property, you got to have over 20 people move out to be over 10%. So, and then to your point too, you just a lot of the smaller properties, the owner will be doing a lot of the work and they won't want that in the valuation when they want their price. Whereas everything else is more professional and the payroll and everything else is already like factored in to the price. And people, they're investors. They understand like, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to pay a salary for this position. And, here are the expenses that go along with that. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's just, it's a fear limiting thing. So I think it's, everybody has to kind of assess their abilities to take on big, scary things.
Yeah.
I think everybody has their own like tolerance for that. And that is often, why people never even get started is that fear. But yeah, I mean, I think I've heard you mentioned a faster jump, but I've heard other people talk about, doing like start with a single family, then go to duplex, like, so they're doubling up each time, quadruplex, eightplex, 16, as a way to go. But there's not really a rule for you to need to do that. Like if you were somebody that was very motivated and had zero money, zero experience, and then you started learning by, reading all the books and everything, but, focus on, let's say, apartments. And then you were able to find a property that you could see being a good value add, and you took it to some people, and wanted to be kind of involved in that. It could be a 400-plex apartment complex, and there's not really a rule that says you can't do that. You haven't done a single family yet.
Well, in Sam Zell's book, it's kind of interesting because he talks about how their business grew and how he started out with a property management company. He also tells a story of how he bought a bunch of single family properties and was planning to basically knock them all down to make an apartment complex. And he's like, we just didn't know we weren't supposed to be able to do that. And they just like did it because they didn't have those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
But I think it is also like the environment more recently isn't as much like this, but it used to be very dangerous where it was like, oh yeah, just go ahead. You took a $5,000 course and you haven't done any real estate. Go ahead and buy a 200. Like it's not. They're also it's not that it's no work. Like you need to have a lot of experience. It is a lot of work. My partners and I work every day of the week, basically. Like it is a lot. You got to learn too.
Yeah, totally. And I intentionally said, take it to somebody to work with on, because your the chances of failure doing it all yourself the first time with no experience would be probably pretty high, and it's definitely a risk. So you probably wouldn't be able to get funding.
Correct. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But I think at the end of the day, like, it really assess where you're at with your risk tolerance and kind of what you need to get started. And a base hit, getting a good solid house, even if it's, I just sold 3 townhouses that would probably be perfect for this. Brand new construction. They were at a pretty good price. And what I had heard that they would rent for from a lender that had a rental in the same community, I was like, it's actually like really not bad. There was no HOA. That would actually be a phenomenal first. And that, that's like probably the opposite of what you think of, like when you think of like a good deal in investing, like, brand new construction townhouse that you didn't build, like, you just buy.
Yeah. And some of the lending terms for those are really good because they'll offer, incentives for that. So and you got, at least a year's builder warranty and different things there too. So that could be pretty good as well.
And we've not really talked about the sales strategies or anything, but that was kind of like you're probably spending, my mindset was like, well, we're talking about building this income or this rental portfolio. That's kind of like on the side, where you're probably not spending most of your time focused on it, where you're probably spending most of your time focusing on building your real estate sales business. Kind of just living in the house that you're going to keep as a rental. But there's also then like, so again, you were more investing, more real estate sales. If somebody else found themselves really a successful agent, found themselves like not wanting to bother with some of these strategies we're talking about, like, somebody's making $600,000 a year as an agent. They have, a wife, they already have a nice house, maybe that they're not, I'm not going to rent this thing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they want to get into investing. And they're like, I'm not going to do house hacking. They probably would have some money to buy just a regular rental, which is possible. But you could also just jump ahead and go into the syndication world as an investor, where you wouldn't necessarily need to learn everything. It's a good idea to have a good base of understanding of how these things work. Because, I mean, you want to vet your operators, you want to vet the deals somewhat. But the idea of a syndication is that you can get some great advantages tax-wise, being a limited partner in these. So maybe just quickly break that down for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal for everyone should be, at least in my opinion, would be to be an LP with a good operator, because you get a lot of the benefits of owning the real estate without having all the headaches of managing it. You know, we have an in-house property management company, we have employees, we've got to maintain that and enforce all the rules of all of our communities. We have to do all the, it's a lot. If you have that, like if I was an agent making $600,000 a year, I didn't want to operate any real estate, that's 100% what I do. I'd find 2 or 3 really good operators, and then just invest in their deals. And like you're saying, learn. If you'd gone through this path that we'd kind of laid out, and you were an operator, then you would be able to you have the skills made to know if they're actually are they being really rosy on the projections? Are they good? Because the operator is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But if not, then you need to spend time learning that skill first before you spend any money with, you hear horror stories all the time. So you got to make sure that you know how.
We're coming out of a bloody season in that space where a lot of people were caught with short-term debt at low interest rates that turned into very high interest rates, a lot higher than they projected. So definitely good to keep that in mind as well. But vetting your operators, like learning a decent amount about this space would be good. Listening to podcasts like this, we talk about it multiple times. But yeah, I mean, you get to depreciate. You would do an accelerated depreciation on these properties with a cost seg, and then as a real estate professional, as a real estate licensee that's full time, I can reduce my taxable income with that cost seg, and I've done nothing really to to make that all happen.
Yeah, and so what you're talking about too, that is a possibility. I'm not a CPA, so we have investors that do it as long as they qualify for that. So your biggest thing, and I feel like the disclaimer no one says, is like check with your CPA, because you got to make sure that you are you have those qualifications. Yeah. And you can take the accelerated depreciation from the deals. But yeah, we pretty much do that on almost all of them. If we're planning to resell them quickly, then we don't, for obvious reasons. But yeah.
So like, I mean, it's almost like you could almost consider it like a realtor's 401k, and you get some good passive income along the way. You get draws, and then there's usually an exit strategy, refinancing the money back out to you. You might still have ownership in the deal, or a sale down the line where you might earn a profit off their initial investment as well.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah, but I mean, these are all some examples of areas you can go. And I hope this conversation was fun for everybody. It's a little bit different, but it was time to get Chase back into the studio. We were around my island on our first episode, but we're in the studio now. So thanks so much for coming, Jace. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I feel like we went kind of all over the place, but hopefully there was some good nuggets in there for people.
For sure. All right.
Thanks.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the REI Agent.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe to catch new shows every week.
Visit reiagent.com for more content.
Until next time, keep building the life you want.
All content in the show is not investment advice or mental health therapy. It is intended for entertainment purposes only.